Hello. Can you listen? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Sorry.
Yes. We
Can
can
you
hear
not?
you. We can see you.
I I don't know why, but it did not let me join. And then when I joined, it only let me join without video and audio. And so sorry for the delay. Uh, okay, let's start. Sorry. Good evening from Jakarta, and good morning to our participants joining from Brazil. My name is Marcelo Hassunuma. I'm the head of the Political and the Science, Technology, and Innovation section at the Embassy of Brazil. Bom dia aí, meu colega Charles. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Experience Exchange in the Transition to Renewable Energy in the Electricity Sector, organized by the Embassy in Jakarta. And I'd like to warmly thank our distinguished speakers and all participants joining us today. And we will later put this on our YouTube channel of the embassy. So if somebody who wanted to join but could not because of the time, can see later. So thank you all for being here. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to advancing the global energy transition and addressing the challenges of climate change. Brazil and Indonesia are both large dynamic economies with growing energy demands and common responsibility to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we also share a unique bond as biodiversity and energy giants. So uh, a lot that we do, that what we do, other countries are looking and seen as examples and stuff. Brazil's experience in the electricity sector offers valuable insights. As everybody knows today, almost 90% of Brazil electricity mix comes from renewable source resources, the result of a long-term planning, robust regulatory frameworks, and sustainable private investment. Brazil continues to innovate in areas such as green fuels, hydrogen, energy storage, offshore wind, while promoting green financing to support industrial decarbonization. Indonesia brings equally important perspectives to this discussion. The country combines strong economic growth with a complex and diverse energy system shaped by geography, development needs, and energy security considerations. At the same time, Indonesia has articulated clear commitments to expand the role of renewable energy and to reach net zero emissions by 2060. Ongoing efforts to develop geothermal, hydropower, bioenergy, and solar energy, and also with biofuels as well, demonstrate the country's growing momentum towards a more sustainable energy future. Today's webinar provides an important platform to exchange experience, share best practice, and identify opportunities for collaboration between Brazil and Indonesia. We can show that energy transition is not a technical burden, but it has to be seen as a good business opportunity for the Global South to lead. We are honored today to welcome Mr. Charles Egberto Guedes, Vonnegut Vieira, de Mello from Brazil's Energy Research Office, and Mr. Deon Arinaldo from the Institute for Essential Services Reform, who will share perspective from Brazil and Indonesia, respectively. The energy transition is not only a technical challenge, but also a strategic one that depends on partnership, trust, and open dialogue. And so without further ado, let's begin this exchange. Thank you for being part of this transition. And Farron, give the floor back to you. And nice to meet you, Dion, Charles. Hello. Hello, everybody. Yes.
Thank you so much, Marcelo, for the opening remarks. So just an overview for everyone how this webinar is going to go. We have a Q&A feature at the top of your screen. So if you'd like to ask questions, you can type it there and we can answer it after both panelists have presented. Each panelist will have about half an hour to present, and I will give you both a reminder when you have 5 minutes left. So let's begin. Without further ado, our first panelist, Mr. Charles Vieira de Mello, from the energy research analyst at the Brazil and Energy Research Office. Mr. Mello will share insights on Brazil's renewable energy matrix and regulatory frameworks in the sector. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Charles Vieira Mello.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Ms. Vieira. It's a pleasure being here to share a little bit about the Brazilian market and how the sector is evolving due to energy transition. Can you see my screen? Just confirm. Yes.
Yes, we can see your
Yes,
screen.
you can see.
Okay, that's perfect. So nice to meet you, and thank you for it's really hard to pronounce my name. So Marcelo, you doing that perfectly. In Brazil, people always struggle with that. So thank you very much. I'm a technical advisor here at EPE, that is Energy Research Office in Brazil, in the power generation department. So in the electricity supply studies area. And I will talk a little bit about the EP, a little bit about the system, and after that, energy transition and how Brazil is dealing with that that goal that we must have to have a healthy planet and a health system. So starting with who we are, well, a quick view of EP. EP is a company, is an enterprise, and we have that all that bureaucracy and all that departments that you must see on that type of company. So we have the presidency, board of directions, and everything, IT, management area. But here we have three finalist directories. One of them is for the economics department. So how the system, the economic health of the system is analyzed here. We have environmental studies department. In the past, we've done a lot of studies of hydropower. And also right now we are studying the transmission lines. That is a huge project here in Brazil. We are a continental country, and they are studying for new technologies and a lot of technical notes about it. We have where I'm working at, that is the power generation department, that looks for the new technologies, the implementation of technologies, how they work together to make the system a robust, risk-free system, and also with a good balance of cost and generation. We have the transmission department that indicates and defines where the transmission lines will behave in the Brazil, will be installed. It's a really important task in Brazil because transmission is the heart of the system. And we also have a department for fuels and biofuels. It's really important to the energy transition to do that kind of modeling and try to move on in the more decarbonized fuels, and also with biofuels. That is a really potential we have here in Brazil. So we have one one department for fuels and biofuels and oil and gas. So about the EP, we are a federal institution, as I already said, and we are part of the structure of Ministries of Mines and Energy. And we develop planning and studies and statistics for the support of formulation, implementation, and assessment of the energy policy. We are not the policymakers, but we are the ones that support the policymakers to have really rational decisions in the process and can have transparency in their decisions. We are located at Rio de Janeiro, a beautiful city. It's a pleasure being here. And the ministry is at Brasilia, where the main policy of the Brazil is located. So, as I've already said, they are responsible for the policies, the plans, the goals of the system. And to that, they send to us the alignment to the policies that they are planning. So they bring to us the information that they need to have, so we can do the planning, we can do the statistics, and send back to them to have more robust and transparency decisions. So the policy, we always that we make a policy, we must do the formulation, try to do it the best we can, and after that we must implement it. So EP participates in all the cycle of the energy policy. We help in the formulation, we help in the implementation. Sometimes we do with the ministry the implementation of the policy. And after that, we must do the assessment of how the policy behaves. So all the cycle EP participates, helping the ministry, helping all the policymakers. And in the middle of that, we must consider the reduction of the asymmetry of the information of the market. So we have a liberalized market in most of the electricity system. We have competition between the agents, and we must reduce the asymmetry of information to provide a healthy competition between the agents and reduce the prices. One major goal of Brazil is having a healthy competition that in the auctions for the transmission, auctions for generation, the free market that we have here for generation also, the distribution, and also for the consumers and new foreign entrances, that new companies that must join the country. And for that, one big part of the one goal of the process that you sent to me is to talk a little bit about cooperation. And Brazil loves cooperation. Our planning and all the energy sector is based on cooperation. Right now, EP has a lot of cooperation with other countries and also with agents and other regulators. It's really important for our system to see what is happening on the world, so we can anticipate new conflicts, new constraints. In the last year, we have a lot of logistics constraints in the offshore wind, in onshore wind. So to plan and adequate our planning, we must cooperate with everyone and talk and bring that information back to us, and also help our partners in the process to have a more healthy electricity and energetic system. So I've spoke a lot about EP, but let's talk about the products that we share with the people, with the ministry, and all of that. So here at the planning process, we must deal with asymmetry of information. So we've done a lot of technical notes and a lot of reports for looking in the future and also looking in the present. So looking to the future, we have a lot of contributions of new technologies. As you can see here, SMRs are a really interesting topic for Brazil today. Nuclear generation is a hot topic here today. So we done a lot of participation in a forum that became a technical note, and also offshore wind. Right now, Brazil is discussing how to regulate offshore wind, how to bring that technology to our system. And with that, how they address with the rest of the system. We have a huge interconnection with some other countries, with a lot of regions. So how that technology can behave in the system. As I've already said, we have oil and gas team also. So they plan the new transportation for the gas and the new transportations for the oil products. Also, we have zoning of the oil also. Right here, we have the planning, the definitive planning of the transmission. It's not indicative. We do the planning and we say where must connect. So our transmission teams do that kind of planning and send to the market, so they compete in between each other. So they decide which one will construct the lines, and a lot of other studies. And the most important part of that is doing the real planning. So to do that, we must collect data, and every year we do collect all the data that was generated, all the energy supply that was generated, all the energy consumption in the country. So that is compiled in only one document. There is the energy balance of the system. So we can plan the future. We can see every year how the system behaved, and using that as a base, we can pass to the energy planning. And the planning must be a long-term and a short-term planning. We cannot plan only 10 years ahead, as we have at PDE, that is a 10-year planning, and do not see the long term. So we have this PDE, that is a 10-year planning of the system, and not electrical system. We have the electrical, the biofuels, all the energetic system analyzed in this document. And we also have E&E, that is this long-term 30 years energy planning, where we do not define and we do not do that detailing of the system, but we have scenarios. So how the energy transition is behaving in the next 30 years. It can go really, really well. It can go a little bit lower than expected. And with that scenarios, we can better address how we're going to behave the companies and the planning process. And right now, in 3 minutes, we are about to plan to launch the new PNE, that is this long-term planning, and the short-term planning. If it was tomorrow, probably I would bring more graphs to you and say a little bit about what Brazil expects for the energy transition, because the last one was at the last PNE was 5 years ago, and we are launching the new one today this year. So hopefully in the next few days, we can share a lot of data. It's entering a public consultation here in Brazil. So planning is the major concern of our system. We must operate the system that is part of another company, another institution of Brazilian electrical system. Uh, to do that kind of stuff, we have the regulators, but planning is our role, and it's really important to guarantee the security of the system. So as I've already said, it depends on data, field surveys, interaction with another agencies to bring that data, but that's not enough. So we must create scenarios as I provided to you at the scenario reports. We must do the interaction with the ministry, see how they are looking at the new years that are coming, look at the Congress that creates laws that must be followed by the planner. And with all that, we must interact. So with Brasilia, we must interact with online people, as we are doing today, gather information of how you're seeing your system, how you're looking for the future. And we also have discussions with agents, third parties, homes, and everyone, so we can create this connection for everyone, so we can do the better planning. And at the end of that, we can do the plan, we can create a report and go to the public, so everyone can contribute to it, doing public consultations, and we can see where we can go. We can adjust where we can go better. And after that, also, we must agree with the institutional governance of the Brazilian. We have a lot of governance, a lot of committees that we must follow also. So after all this talking about planning, we must say, where is Brazil at energy transition? Where the past brings us today. So right now, about 70% of the GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions in Brazil, are focused on agriculture, land use, and land use change, and forestry. So the energetic sector here in Brazil only corresponds to 20.5% of the emissions in Brazil. So we are in the middle already of the energy transition. And that became reality due to a really high renewability of the electric system here in Brazil, and the use of biofuels and a lot of other sources of energy that are not coming from oil and gas. And when you see that numbers, it can be okay. Probably you won't have a lot of change in the energy, but you can have a lot of emissions. But when you see the emissions that Brazil has for inhabitants, for each inhabitant, we have almost 2 tons of emission for each inhabitant of the country. That is less than a half of OECD emissions, more than a third of, less than a third of China emissions, and less than 1/6 of the USA emissions. So we are already in the middle of these transitions, and we must keep going that so we can address the future. It's not enough. It's already a good starting point, but we must continue. So we are doing that our job to continue this transition. At 2015, when we were discussing the Paris Agreement, Brazil have almost 42% of the energetic sector as a renewable source. Right now, we are arriving 50% at 2024, 2 years ago, when we last addressed the numbers at 2025. So we are evolving that by reducing the share of oil and gas and increasing the share of renewables as photovoltaics and wind source. And Brazil can have that because we have a really nice potential in the Northeast region, as you can see in a few slides. and also because we have this huge transmission, this huge amount of hydropower that creates the balance that we must have and the flexibility to the system. So when you look the share and how the electrical system evolves during the last years, we have the reduction of the participation of hydropower plants. There was a major concern during the beginning of 2000. We had almost 90% of the energy being generated by hydropower. And that was a problem because when you have dry seasons and when you have sequential years with dry seasons with really low income of inflow, you have problems with power generation. And during the 2000 and the 2010, Brazil started to trying to divorce its matrix, starting with oil and gas. But after that, we started to incentivize the renewables as wind and solar. As you can see, we are evolving a lot with that two types of energy generation. And also we have an interesting share of biomass in the electricity system. As we have sugarcane production, we can have power generation beside that and some other sources of biomass. Our natural gas, our coal, and our oil products are reducing and also being diluted by the share of other energy sources. And here's the expansion of the matrix. So as I showed you before, 2015 to 2024, we had this amount of share in the beginning of the few years of the beginning of the scenario. We had still some entrance of hydropower plants. We have some fossil sources entering and leaving the energy sector. But after 2020, we saw a huge amount of solar photovoltaics entering the system. Right now, we are starting to deal with the problems of curtailments. We are starting to see that since 2023, there is a thing that we as planner and the policymakers are dealing with. So, but it's not, we are not seeing as a long-term problem. It's more a conjunctural problem. But that creates more security, that evolves of wind and of solar, reduces the risk of this low income of hydropower plants. And how we got there? So we are already in the middle of transition. As I showed to you that we have the capacity to bring new wind and photovoltaics, but how we got there? As you can see on the map of the left, here we have the Brazilian country, and we also have the power generation sources in Brazil. In the beginning of the last century, we discovered that the hydropower plant was the major capacity of the country. So we started deploying a lot of hydropower plants. And that was majorly here at the southeast, the south, a little bit on northeast, in the center west. So we created that plant. That plants became really important to us, and we started to looking for potentials for further and further away from our demand. So we started to leading a more integrated system with some the transmission brings that energy to the center of demand. And that creates a huge transmission system we have right now. As you can see, all the capitals of Brazil here are interconnected. We have still some points here at the Amazon rainforest that ain't connected, and that creates a really important topic to us to discuss, how to decarbonize that regions that are isolated from the system. But with that amount of hydro that we installed until 2010, we have the capability to install onshore wind and photovoltaics, and the system still behaves with stability. And that's really interesting because we interconnected the northeast to the southeast in the beginning of 2000. And that was the major aspect that allowed us to install that amount of wind. As you can see, we have a lot of wind here at northeast, at the top of the country. We have a lot of solar there, and that brings energy to the rest of the country right now. So the major expansion of the system is not where the demand is a little further away, and we are reinforcing that transmission to allow the interconnection to that energy to the demand. So the major concern here in Brazil right now, we have a competitive energy source, renewable energy source, but we must bring that to the demand. So from 2015 to 2024, we have almost 45% of increase of the transmission lines here. So that was the major policy that was made to allow the integration of the system and guarantee the dispatch of the system also. And that represents almost 43 billion US dollars that was made in 19 transmission auctions. Here we have auction system that we designed the transmission lines, as I've already said, and the enterprise compete between each other to the lower price of viabilizing the project, to construct the project. And after that, they receive a monthly remuneration for that construction. They compete for that remuneration that they will receive for the construction. And here we pass to another major concern here in Brazil. We have right now we have 175 isolated systems. There are some regions that we could not bring that transmission to the people because it's too hard to construct in the Amazon rainforest. We also have one island here in Brazil that is isolated, that is Fernando de Noronha. It's a paradisiac place, but it's too far away from the continent. It won't be viable to bring transmission to that. So we have that isolated systems. And one major concern right now is to decarbonize that regions. They are really dependent on diesel and oil products to generate the power they need. So we are creating, in the last year, we had an auction for new generation of that regions. And one of them, we started to bring battery with photovoltaic resistance to start to creating that decarbonized. We also creating a mandate for biofuels there. So we're starting to decarbonize that regions as the new power is entering that. And we are also trying to reduce the amount of them. Every system that we interconnect with the system that brings more security and more affordability to the people and to the system to buy that energy and consume. And right now we're entering the last step of the presentation. That is the next steps for the energy transition here in Brazil, the regulations and how we are dealing with that, and to eradication of energy poverty. That is a major concern of the government. So we launched a lot of reports that bring information to the population and for the companies, saying how we are dealing with that, the new policies, and how we are advancing in that perspective. A lot of them are in English, so it's publicly available for international partners to look about it. You can see you can see the tag here where you can find our report. But here's the regulations we made since 2016 until today. We had a lot of regulations about here we are dealing with energy efficiency of the objects, of the lights, equipment. So we have Procel that creates validation of the efficiency of the equipment. We have Renewable that deals with biofuels. One important topic for decarbonizing the Brazil is dealing with biofuels and incrementing it to allow the reduction of the consumption of bioproducts. We have this Rota 2030, there was mobility and logistic programs for the Brazilian governmental regulation of limits of flaring.
Excuse me, Charles, you have 5 minutes left.
Okay, that's perfect. Just on time. Thank you, Perrin. So we are reducing the losses in oil, gas exploration and production by flares and other losses that they have naturally, innovation in the energy sector, and a lot of others. I will focus on three right here that are more concerned of the electricity market. That is the offshore wind. We are right now dealing with the regulation of offshore wind. Is a hot topic here in Brazil. We have a lot of onshore wind potential yet, but we see that we have some concerns about overlapping of the onshore, having too much on some regions, and the concerns about the impacts on the population. So offshore wind is starting to be discussed as a solution for a longer term energy matrix. We also have the light of people, the light for the people. So here we bring for the reduction of energy poverty. It's a long-term governmental project that tries to eradicate energetic poverty here in Brazil. And we also starting to deal with BESS and how to regulate BESS. We see that as we are not expanding more hydropower plants, our major concern for capacity and flexibility is based on two solutions right now. We have a little bit of reinforcements on hydropower plants. We have thermal power plants that can bring that flexibility to the system, and would also bring BESS and other storage system as pumped storage to the system to allow the expansion of other variable resources and to allow the demand to fluctuate with security. So we are dealing with BESS for auction today. It was on a public consultation some time ago, and we are trying to create this new auction here in Brazil. And we had a law last year about the modernization of the electrical market that creates more liberty to the consumers and also creates the energy storage, a storage agent. That is a really important topic for allowing the BESS and the pumped hydro and other storage systems to enter the system. So just to show you this, the eradicating the energy poverty, that is a major concern of the government. Right now we have 99.8% of the population with access to electricity here. And our goal is to get that to 100%. We are really focused on that. And also to bring the population the primary access to clean fuels, to leave behind the fossil fuels, and not only the fossil, but the coal and another indirect source that is not clean fuel. So we had the lights for everyone that brings the energy distribution into that remote areas. And we also create these isolated systems for more robust development of the grid. The light for the people that creates free electricity for the first 80 kilowatt hours per month for low-income families, so they can have energy to better suit their necessities. And gas for the people, where they have free liquefied gas, liquefied gas for the families, or payment for their consumption, so they have access to that kind of source. And the last slide, it's really one really interesting policy was we brought the biofuel. We have a mandate of at least today, at least 15% of biodiesel in the diesel that is commercialized here in Brazil. And we also increased the amount of alcohol. In Brazil, we have alcohol in the gasoline. It's a mandate, and we increased that to 30%. It's not a short-term decision. It started in the 70s during pro-alcohol program that creates this demand for alcohol. We had alcohol cars being started being sold at that time. After that, in the 2000, we started to having flex fuel cars, They can have gas, gasoline, or alcohol. And right now we have this mandate to decarbonize the transport and logistics. Well, that's it. I've rushed a little bit on the last slide. Thank you for your attention. I hope that was interesting to you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Charles Mello, for the insightful remarks. We're really grateful that you could be with us today to share your knowledge about this very important topic. I feel like I really learned a lot from your presentation. And now let's hear it from our second panelist from Indonesia, Mr. Deon Arinaldo, the Director for Energy Systems Transformation at the Institute for Essential Services Reform, or IESR. Mr. Deon will provide an overview on Indonesia's energy transition pathway, including challenges and opportunities that may reside in the sector. So, Mr. Deon, the time is yours. I'll let you know when you have 5 minutes left.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you for Embassy of Brazil, Mr. Marcelo, and also our fellow panelist, Charles, for the wonderful presentation. I also learned a lot, actually, and I actually have come up with a few ideas of what to learn and maybe exchange between Indonesia and Brazil. But yeah, I'll go directly to my presentation. So I named my presentation Energy Transition Pathway for Enabling Indonesia's Sustainable Growth. I'll say that this is a common shared goal between emerging economies, because we want to see our economy grow in a sustainable way, and energy transition has been a prerequisite for that growth, sustainable growth. What I meant with sustainable growth, not only for the industries, but also how do we transform our energy system to enable our fellow countrymen that maybe has lack of access out. You mentioned before, Mr. Charles, that you also have isolated system, and then there is a program for the poor, and then I'll say that energy system and what solution that it's brought with them today could also be, I mean, solution for these people. Yeah. So briefly, maybe I'll start with introduction of IESR. Oh, I have to move to the. Sorry, I'm not really familiar with Teams. Bear with me. Okay. So a brief introduction for IESR. So we are independent energy transition think tank. So we are not affiliated with any government, nor academics or any companies, but we are born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia, and we've been dealing with energy system and its transition for quite a few, for the past 2 decades, so to say. So as an independent think tank, of course, what the view that I will bring today will be a highlight of what Indonesia has done for its energy transition. And after what I will say, that I would also want to highlight what IESR has been researching and find as a more suitable pathway for Indonesia, which could be a bit different than, could be different than what the government is planning. Yeah, just bear with me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for about IESR, so we have a couple of programs. The one that I manage is Energy System Transformation, which deal more on the technical pathway analysis on Indonesia's transition. We do have a program that focus more on energy access and more on the people sides of energy transition. And then another thematic focus on industry, diplomacy, and also the aspect of just transition. How do we do the transition in a just and inclusive way? We also have, we are now doing several projects. We are implementing partner for several bilateral projects called CASE, Safety, and JETI. So I will not explain more on that, but that's what we have been doing. And lastly, maybe a short introduction that we also have developed a couple of tools platform that we as a think tank that we want to share our knowledge to the greater audience. So we build this platform as a way to pool the knowledge and let the people that has interest to visit and learn more about any kind of thing. So we the first one is carbon footprint calculator. So it's an individual carbon footprint calculator, but also we are developing one for the corporate level now. For our knowledge hub, we built this transisi energi.ide. So that's bahasa translated to English is energy transition. And along with that is academy course, which is our online platform, learning platform. So in that platform, you could learn a thing or two on a specific topic on energy transition that you like to learn. So some of it is free. And lastly is Solar Hub, where we see we want to build an ecosystem for one of the most promising renewables for Indonesia, which is solar. And Solar Hub is sort of built the bridge between the consumers candidate and with the developers or private or companies that has the capacity to develop. So that's in short how IESR now, and of course we do research as one of our main product, but as a derivative of that research, we also do a lot of platform and sharing knowledge hub things. Yeah. Now moving on to the main presentation, so I'll tell a bit on Indonesia energy system transition progress. So for those of you who doesn't know Indonesia, we are an archipelagic nations consisting of 17,000 of islands, but you see here that there are major islands where most of the population are located. And that also has implication actually for the current development of energy system. Yeah, I would like to start with this graph. So it's a bit of a complex graph, but how to read is you start from the left. Left is basically telling you the source of energy for the current Indonesia energy system, and going toward the right, you'll see how this energy is being utilized to generate the, alternative, whether you use coal for electricity, for example. And then at the end, on the right-hand side is the demand where the energy is being used, actually. So from this graph, you see that the black, which is coal, the red, which is oil and fuel, and the brown one, which is gas, still make up most of our energy mix. So it's about 85%, while the renewables is, the rest, make up of the rest. As for the power system itself, coal is still the main source of electricity. Now making up about 65, more than 65% of power generation. That's for the on-grid system, which is managed by our state-owned enterprise, but also providing for an industrial park, which sometimes work in a separate grid from the one managed by the state-owned enterprise. Another interesting thing from this graph is that you see on the bottom left here, there is fuel import, which is quite substantial. And this has been one of the major issue for Indonesia energy system. And we've been trying to deal with this fuel import, but the demand has been growing and the import also has grown over the years. So of course, some of the solution that we have proposed, and you probably have guessed, is that we are also promoting biofuel. Mostly is in the form of biodiesel. So we mix fatty acid methyl ester or FAME from the palm oil. Well, it's processed from the palm oil and blend that with our diesel. And now until last year, it's 40% mix. But since this year, the government plans to increase that to 50% mix, which is quite huge, which is quite a huge mix, blending compared to what Brazil has been doing. We are also mixing ethanol or alcohol with our gasoline, but it's just started for this year. until 10% mix. So at least that's the plan. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Now, what about the power sector? So this slides focus more on the power sector. So I mentioned before briefly that our power sector, the main one is managed by our state-owned utility, PLN. But for the past 5 years, actually the growth of the capacity is also massively coming from the captive, which is operated to support electricity for the industries. And most of the emission growth is actually coming from there. Why? Because Indonesia has implemented a moratorium for coal-fired power plant. So basically, the on-grid power plant is for coal is not being built anymore, except for the one that has been planned before the regulation come out. The regulation come out in 2022. But for the industry, it's still being allowed as long as the industry is in need of energy or being recognized as a strategic value industry, and that's why the emission, the total power sector emission is still growing massively from these captive sources, which is around 19% compound annual growth rate for the past 5 years. The good news is on our on-grid power sectors, the one that managed by our state-owned enterprise, their latest 10 years plan, which just came out last year, foresee 75% of capacity addition coming from renewables, while the 25% is still consists of coal, gas, and some diesel. But this is a huge change compared to the latest plan, which is in 2021. And this, however, it's still a plan because we need to really execute it, deploy the project, and that's where the problem lies. And I'll tell you more on that. The other good news is actually the industry that is having built this massive coal is actually having quite an appetite for building more renewables actually. However, now the limitation is more on the regulation. It's a bit complex issue in Indonesia because we manage our electricity system by area. So we assign specific area managed by a utility. So for industrial park, basically, because they only have the area of their industrial park, so they don't have much freedom in building renewables surrounding their industrial park. So you basically need more renewables. You could basically find it on the proximity of industrial park, but regulation doesn't really allow that for now. Yeah, this is also a complex graph, but I would just want to highlight you that we just recently also updated our national energy policy as well as national electricity plan, which set the target of renewable energy increase by quite significant. The national energy policy set the primary energy mix to be 70% of renewable energy by 2060. And the rest of fossil will need to either utilize carbon reduction technology to reach that, for the power sector especially, to reach that zero emission for the power sector, while the industry still have some additional residual emission. As for the RUKN, it's also tells the same story. Set the target of 74% of new and renewable energy or electricity mix by 2060. However, one of the consideration for the short term is that the target is still set the bar quite low. As I mentioned before, our primary energy mix from renewable is 15%, but the target in 2030 is it's still a huge increase, 8%, but we have been having that 23% target from the previous national energy policy set to be achieved by this year, actually, last year actually, but now the target has been postponed like 5 years after. Same with the power sector, 21% by 2030, which is a 5% increase from 2025, which is, I think, should be easily achievable considering the renewables trend and development in technology. Now, also a highlight of Indonesia power system. On the left-hand side, this is a graph I take directly from the Ministry of Energy, National Electricity Planning. So what basically the graph tell you is that on the area, color area, so you see that there are some island that is marked bright red, while the rest are yellow, orange-ish. So the reddish, the more red it is, it means that there are more demand on that specific region. The yellow one is basically it's the lowest demand from out of this region. So you see that most of our demand, actually almost 60-70% is actually located in the red island on that bottom side of the Indonesia. So it's a Java island where our capital is, and while the rest of the demand is spread across different major island, well, we also have a lot of isolated system on this smaller island and mini grid as well on the smaller island, which also sometimes doesn't really have access to energy. And because of this different in geography, also infrastructure development across the island, on the right hand side, you could see that basically we have varying electricity generation costs for different system and different island. It's the dot called VPP there, the blue dot there, and the lowest generation cost is on Java Island, the one that has the highest demand, that one, and Bali, while the rest of the island actually have quite a substantial difference between compared to Java and Bali in terms of generation cost. In terms of reliability, also you see the metrics there is the amount of interference in terms of duration per customer and also frequency per customer is also relatively higher for this other island in Java. And yeah, this is has been a problem and has been also the focus of Indonesian government for the past 2 decades. How do we, I mean, redistribute and increase reliability of different system? And one of their solutions that they're thinking is building interconnection between the large system of the major island. And in the end, maybe also the rest of the system as well. But from our perspective, the interconnection should be prioritized for the major system in large island, but for the smaller one, you could actually build a more compact, independent system. Yeah, and another thing perhaps that I want to mention is that from our constitution, the government has been keeping the policy of maintaining the same electricity price across the system. And you see the implication today because we have different generation costs basically on this island. Basically, the state-owned enterprise has to borne the losses from generating electricity for this island that is more expensive. And that has been compensated by the government with subsidy and compensation from the state budget. But that also has created problem in terms of, sustainability and security in the future for Indonesia energy system. Yeah. So main bottleneck, I just want to highlight 3 that I think is more, is the main one for the power sector transition. This is specifically for the power sector. The first one is the unlevel playing field. I touched a little bit about subsidies and compensation, but there are also other incentive provided to generation. Unfortunately, most of this incentive is given to the fossil because of past regulation back in 2006, 2010 period. And this incentive is in the form of DMO, domestic market obligation of the coal that we produce. It has to be allocated 25% to domestic market, and the price is kept stable under a certain threshold. So basically, it removes the risk of increasing fuel costs or of volatility of fuel costs for the fossil fuel system. And because of that, state-owned enterprise see fossil fuel as the cheapest source of electricity, even compared to the current development of renewables. The second one is institutional capacity. I mentioned before, state-owned enterprise, they serve 2 functions. They are a state-owned enterprise, so they have to produce profit, but at the same time, they are also tasked by the government to provide public service obligation, serving the outermost region of Indonesia with the same services. So, and this has caused an issue in terms of financial capacity of the institution, and it affects their ability to procure or also develop their system, investment for transmission, investment for new generation that relies on also the state on enterprise capacity financially, because they also some of the projects supposed to be, I mean, developed by them. Second one is, of course, with more renewables and capacity being planned, then the PLN has to really step up in terms of how do they procure renewables itself. So for the past 5 years, renewables has been growing only in 100 megawatt size. So, but the plan is 42 gigawatt so in the next 10 years. So they really have to step up like 10 times in terms of procuring renewable. And this is also the third problem, which is now, because they are just trying to get into this renewable procurement processes, and the scheduling has been really not really clear, and it's increasing the risk of project development and basically making renewables looks more expensive. And if you add to that the incentive provided by fossil, so you see how the system, in a sense, push for a lock-in in fossil. Yeah, so that's about Indonesia progress now. There are a couple of major problems, but we as a think tank, we also propose a pathway, a different pathway for the countries to do their energy transition. So this is I just took this from our study back in 2021. We are now at the moment updating the studies with a more updated technology numbers, potential, and so on. But we do see that even though we have that many complex problem, we actually have more than enough renewables potential to power the entirety of our electricity need. And yeah, on the right hand side, you see that the black and the red, which is coal and gas and oil, has been reducing quite substantial. And it's replaced by basically solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal. So we have also geothermal. So geothermal and hydro in this case, at the time when we made the studies, have reached their maximum available theoretical potential. So then enough solar. So that's why you see a lot of solar there. The yellow one is, yeah, the graph has just been increasing with yellow. And in terms of capacity, it's even reaching 1,000 gigawatt. And the reason for that and how do we balance that is through energy storage, basically, and using the excess solar to do other, I mean, other useful energy production. For example, creating a synthetic fuel. So that's how we foresee energy transition based on our research. Yeah, and we also have done assessment of the potential. So we are not only stopping at technical potential, but we also assess further the sites and location of this potential with a financial model. With those analyses, we could come up with potential sites where the return for investor is quite attractive under current tariff regime. So and we also only filter the potential, the one that is near the current grid system. So that's why you see more potential on Java, although the land is quite limited in Java because of the population density. But because of the grid is more robust and more developed in Java, we see more potential there. And on the eastern part, although the technical potential is actually much higher than the other island, but because of the grid infrastructure readiness, most of the sites we see as still need quite a bit of investment to be able to be developed. So this is also showcase you how important having a really robust grid because you basically could also build a grid with the purpose of accessing most attractive or most attractive renewable sites, basically. And from that assessment, we actually have 330 gigawatt that under current technology and pricing regime, you could get at least return of 7%. And there are some sites that is more than 10%. Yeah, and on the grid expansion and transmission, I mentioned before the government plan to interconnect everything, but we see that the priority should be put on the major system. So we have 5 major islands and several system and a grid there, basically building interconnection between each island and then across this major island. But for the smaller one, the one that is you could say medium scale grid with 300, 500 megawatt demand, you could fulfill that demand with local resources. So it's combination of geothermal, biomass, solar, wind, whatever resources are there, we could utilize. And we have done so in several islands in Indonesia, in Sumbawa and in Timor, which is in the eastern part of Indonesia. Yeah, and it actually brings the cost lower if you do that. I mean, because basically at the moment the system is operating with sometimes with expensive diesel and turning that into renewables basically make you save fuel from the diesel itself. So I don't want to explain this because it takes some time, but it's basically what the graph tells you on as a result of our study on these 3 different islands. Yeah, and this is a highlight of our we do an Indonesia Energy Transition Dialogue annually. So it's a high-level forum where we discuss and invite stakeholders to discuss how we could advance energy transition in Indonesia. And the last one in 2025 come up with these 3 short-term quick wins, which basically first one is if you've heard our president in a forum in Brazil, actually, when he where he announced that Indonesia could be reaching 100% renewables in 15 years. Although the national energy policy came out a bit different in terms of target, but the president has in the past 5 months instructed several ministries to build 100 gigawatt distributed solar, which is quite we from our point of view is a very right solution for Indonesia to solve some of the energy access problem and also development problem in several regions altogether, while developing the renewable energy industry as well. Second one is rooftop solar, which is quite an easy way to actually develop it, and with a lot of demand, it could be a really a way to just expand renewables quickly for especially rooftop, especially solar, of course. And the last one is basically power wheeling, and this has been quite a long discourses in Indonesia because yeah, because of the regulation and a constitutional law that that see the state has the right to manage the important strategic resources, including electricity, and that has been translated into the state-owned electricity company, the PLN, to own most of the right of operation. So basically, it's acting as single off-taker. But if you allow power wheeling, then you could actually invite not only renewable energy developer, but also industry to build renewable. So we don't see that there is a clash in terms of that solution for against our constitutional law, but that's still a really hot discussion in Indonesia at the moment. Yeah, and lastly, last 2 slides, opportunities for collaboration. So this is just to
Excuse me,
reiterate
Mr. Deon, you
my
have 5
point.
minutes left.
Yeah, perfect. So 2 slides, so should be enough. So this is just to reiterate the point that we see energy transition as engine of sustainable growth. That means improving our industry competitiveness by providing clean energy as it becomes a more decisive decisive factor for investment over the years. We've seen our neighboring countries like Vietnam and Malaysia getting more investment because of the regulation that allows for renewable energy to be built for specific industries or any investment, for example, the data center. And we see how it could create not only investment, but create the job opportunity that is much needed for the people. So, and lastly, of course, the intangible benefit of clean energy, reduce pollution, clean air, improve productivity, and so on. And last slide is on because I've been asked in the term of reference, what you see as potential collaboration between Indonesia and Brazil, I assume here. So I've been thinking about several area, but understanding what Charles has presented just now, I would like to expand some of the proposal actually. On the power transition, what I propose is capacity building, especially on the hydropower, because as far as I understand, Brazil has developed that has substantial knowledge on building hydropower, not only the technology point of view, but also how to manage that asset, and especially on the pumped hydro energy storage as well. So I'm not sure whether this is also something that we could have an exchange in investment and technology cooperation, but there's something is needed from to perspective of Indonesian grid, having more hydro energy storage. And from the assessment, we do have a lot of potential for this pumped hydro energy storage. And we could expand more of that storage if you consider the pumped hydro energy storage not only on the inland water body, but also including the sea as well. So there are a lot of, research area also, if you would like to explore on that part. Second one is because you also mentioned on the isolated system. As I mentioned before, the president has announced that and instructed the ministries to come up with this 100 gigawatt distributed solar program addressing energy access for 80,000 villages in Indonesia, and learning from what Brazil has done on the northwest part of the region. How do you make a mechanism that allow for this grid to this isolated system to thrive and maybe create economic opportunity for the people there. That will be interesting to have a sharing on that, especially since we are now still developing that distributed solar program. So any kind of like knowledge on business models, regulatory framework on building this isolated system will be interesting. And I'll add two more on the power. The third one is transmission, because it seems that you also have a good emphasis on the transmission procurement. This is again something that is important. As I mentioned before, we want to build our interconnection system. So learning from what Brazil has done in terms of building this interconnection and transmission is also a good segue. And last one is on the energy. Energy poverty is quite linked to the second point, but last one is maybe on the best. Oh yeah, sorry, on the renewable energy integration, because you have 23% variable renewable energy, while Indonesia only has like less than 1% now. But the utility and government sees that the intermittency, the variability of renewable as uh, a risk for them and would cause increase in system costs. And you mentioned that you also face problem with this more solar and wind, but you faced that earlier than Indonesia, and learning from fellow emerging economies might be more uh, more easy for the utility and also the government side to understand, and maybe we are not that different in terms of, I mean, it's only 5 years experience for you, so it's not really that long ago where you start integrating renewables, and it'll be interesting to have exchange on that. And on the last two, outside the power, of course, this is have to be mentioned, the ethanol and biodiesel, because we both bioenergy based countries. But I would like to point out what we should use that beyond transport fuel, because from our research we see that for passenger vehicles, electric vehicle would just be the solution. And this put the ethanol and biodiesel at the risk of being stranded assets. So maybe beyond just transport sector, maybe what could use for the fuel itself. And lastly is because I believe you also have power to X um, uh, program in Brazil. It's basically using excess electricity to produce and support energy transition on other sector, and producing fuel for industry. Interesting to also explore. And yes, that will be the end of my presentation, and I'll give it back to Ms. Feren. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deon, for your insightful presentation. Um, I believe it was actually very interesting seeing perspectives from both Brazil and Indonesia. I noticed that both countries have lots of similar interests in energy transition, such as use of hydropower, bioethanols, and seems like there is huge potential for bilateral cooperation in the sector, which actually aligns with the Brazil-Indonesian bilateral mission of increasing cooperation in this field. Interestingly, last October in 2025, the Brazilian president Lula da Silva visited Jakarta and met with President Prabowo, and they both signed a bunch of bilateral agreements. And one of them is actually a memorandum of understanding between the Indonesian Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources and the Brazilian Ministry of Mines and Energy for energy and mining cooperation. So given that there is political will to have this increased bilateral cooperation in this sector, I think it'll be really interesting to see how both our countries can move forward. Yeah, so we have a couple of questions from the Q&A section, one question for each speaker. Let's start with the question for Charles from Alifa. Thank you for the insightful presentation, Charles. One of the bottlenecks of Indonesia's renewable energy transition is the issue of job loss in the oil and gas sector during the process. Has EPE addressed it in Brazil, and if so, how?
It's a major concern here at Brazil too. We also faced something similar to that because we had more than 50 years of oil and gas production, and some of our fields have already been mostly been emptied. So we are starting to look at this past, what happened in the past, and look to the future. So one thing that Brazil already done was we have royalties for the oil and gas production that must be made in the local regions to incentivize the new technologies to go there, to create an industry, to create an market there to support the regions after the oil and gas is leaving the region. And looking for the longer term for the energy transition, we have two major aspects. Here in Brazil, the pre-salt, the where we are retrieving gas right now, we have a really low amount of carbon by liter, by barrel of oil. So we see that the ones that have lower amount of oil must be the last ones to be put it away in the market. And also, it will happen. We are already seeing that it's going to happen. And we are looking for offshore wind as a major job creation industry on that region. We are starting to look at another sources of jobs in that region. So fishing, offshore wind, local industries for marine and other major sources of jobs.
Thank you very much, Charles, for the explanation. Now the second question is from another participant. They sent the question to me personally. It's for Mr. Deon. What's the most effective way for the public to support think tanks like IESR in pushing for regulations that promote renewable energy transition?
Well, there are a lot of ways actually what we could do as a, public. Yeah, first of all is I guess the learning. How do we accelerate the learning across the people of Indonesia? Because this is a new thing. In some way, it will affect how we live and see the energy provided. In general, I would say that most of Indonesian people doesn't really understand where the electricity is coming from, right? And just improving the learning. Hey, our electricity is actually still dominated by fossil. It also has impact actually to our life, even though we don't know for up until today. And after that learning, of course, hopefully it could. Well, we also provide the platform for that learning, but after the learning, what we want is, of course, the support and also maybe to some extent pressure for for the policymaker to have more confidence in making the decision for the policy favoring more renewables. I mentioned before some of the short-term quick wins, like rooftop solar regulation. That I would say now is still the issue for the elites in Indonesia. So the one that only know the issue, but for the general public, it's a non-issue. It's something that they don't really understand. But if you look at the rooftop solar, it's a one way for the public have uh, to have a freedom of choice or option for having their own energy. So this in sovereignty, individual sovereignty could be, should be like provided, or at least the option should be provided by the government, and that's, I would say, is in our constitution, and having the public push for that would be really great. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deon, for your answer. It was actually very interesting. Yeah, and I believe that actually concludes our webinar for today. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for the panelists, Mr. Charles Vieira de Mello and Mr. Deon Arinaldo. We really enjoyed your presentation, and I can really see that both of you are very passionate about the field of energy transition. And given the ever more strengthening bilateral cooperation between Brazil and Indonesia in the field of energy, I hope that we could all stay in touch and hopefully collaborate on more projects in the future. And Marcelo, do you have anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
I'd just like to thank everybody that stayed with us tonight and listen. I also learned a lot, and hopefully we can discuss further possibilities of cooperation. And thank you everybody, especially the panelists who contributed today. Thank you a lot, and see you soon, everybody. Yes, until next time.
Thank you a lot.
Yes, thank you everyone. We will be in touch.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you everyone. Have a good night and good morning in Brazil.
Good morning and good night for everyone.